Since she was a small child, she has longed to be a noble. From her early years, she had immersed herself in stories where common girls fall in love with noble boys, believing in her heart that she will someday follow that path. She imagines that even after becoming a noble, she will still return to those novels, reimagining herself as the protagonist. Determined to do her best, she constantly relives the narrative in her mind. Then, one day, the revelation comes. She is the secret child of Count Banach, and it is decided that she will be taken in by the Count. The shock is overwhelming, as if her life mirrors the very novels she cherishes. Slowly, she realizes those books have always been about her. She is the protagonist, rising from common origins to a noble destiny. Her story contains the elements she once read about: the villainous daughter's fiancé, Rammer, the villainous daughter herself, Yelia, her older brother, Roland, and her favorite character, the prince. Major now appears before her, bowing apologetically to Yelia. It is a surreal moment. Radonic, observing Major's behavior, urges him to stand, telling him not to embarrass himself further. Yet Major turns to Radonic, smiling and addressing him as brother, acknowledging that it has been some time since they last saw each other. Perplexed, Radonic asks when Major developed such strange tendencies. Without hesitation, Major responds that it must have started when he began working at the shop. He adds, without amusement, that Radonic need not concern himself with his behavior, as all he desires is for Yelia to step on him. Frustrated, Radonic demands to know what Yelia has done to his brother. Yelia, maintaining her composure, replies that she has done nothing and merely asked Major to work in her store. Major then recounts his own tale, explaining that when he was humiliated at the castle by a superior for his failures, Yelia appeared. She spoke boldly, telling his superior that if Major was so useless to him, he should give him to her. Her words were so commanding that Major fell for her in that moment. Since then, all he has wanted is to serve her, even if it means being humiliated. Radonic, now realizing that Yelia is not to blame, offers her an apology. Major, however, interrupts by asking Radonic why he has come. Radonic explains that he has arrived to meet his mother. Without delay, Major informs him that she is upstairs in their residence. As Radonic looks up, Julie suddenly makes an abrupt entrance, colliding with him. The impact leaves him momentarily stunned, and as he wobbles, she calls herself clumsy and foolish, immediately expressing concern for him. She grabs his arm, asking if he is all right. Startled, Radonic insists he is fine and urges her to let go. Julie, however, is not deterred. She insists that, as an apology for her mistake, he should allow her to buy him something. On the sidelines, Renard and Grinter observe the scene in confusion. Then, without warning, Yelia claps her hands and announces that there is something more pressing to attend to. She proudly presents a hat she has made, which is part of a set with matching shoes, and expresses her hope that they will try them on. Radonic declares that he will buy the item. When Yelia invites him to come in, he attempts to flee, insisting that he will gift the items to the young ladies. As Radonic hurries inside, Yelia turns to Julie, asking if she, too, has come to try the shop. She then takes out a frock and suggests it, remarking that this one-piece dress would suit her well. Julie, upon inspecting the dress, grips it tightly, accusing Yelia of implying that she would look good in commoner clothes. Yelia simply states that while Julie has indeed risen from being a commoner, she is now a noble and will no longer wear the garments of the lower class. Yelia then asks if Julie is here for the cap or the shoes, to which Julie snaps back, demanding that Yelia stop insulting her and declaring that she will never buy anything from a store for commoners. Tears begin to stream down Julie's face. As Yelia watches, she recalls a scene from one of the novels where the villainess bullies the heroine in front of a store. She calmly asks Julie to wipe her tears. At that moment, a man appears in the store and offers Julie a handkerchief. He then explains that Lady Yelia has designed the shop so that everyone, regardless of status, can enjoy fashion. He suggests that if Julie does not wish to shop here, she should leave. Without hesitation, he promptly tosses her out. As Julie turns to look at him, he adds that everything Yelia is wearing today, from her hairpieces to her shoes, has been procured from the store. He reminds her that by insulting Yelia, she has also insulted the establishment itself. He then announces that she is henceforth banned from entering the shop, as she has already made it clear she would never purchase anything there. With that, he slams the door behind her, leaving the onlookers in stunned silence. On the other side, Yelia praises Mr. Orga for handling the situation so adeptly. He responds that it brings him great joy to receive her praise. She then calls out to Major, declaring that she will step on him very hard, but Mr. Orga assures her not to worry, as he will take care of him. Without delay, he drags Major away. Yelia then turns to Radonic, reminding him that he hasn't forgotten his promise to pay for everything. He agrees, albeit reluctantly. And as people admire his beauty, they gather around Yelia, whispering that she should give up on Rammer and pursue his Imperial Highness instead. Yelia disagrees, stating that she is a count's daughter and their statuses are too different. Meanwhile, Radonic takes out his wallet, still unsure of what is going on as he continues to pay. Yelia, spotting a purse on the shelf, decides to choose that one. Radonic, shocked, asks why she needs to select something from her own shop. Doesn't she already have whatever she wants? Feeling embarrassed, Yelia wonders whether he even tries not to look down on people. She smiles and asks Radonic if they aren't friends, to which he sighs, relieved that he has spoken too soon. Then, playfully, she shouts that since His Imperial Highness has volunteered to pay, everyone should select as many items as they desire. The crowd quickly gets busy browsing, and Yelia urges Radonic to visit Matilda. As the two make their way to the second floor, where Major and Matilda reside, Matilda appears, mentioning that she has unexpected guests today. Radonic comments that her appearance is also unexpected, to which she replies that she can't be bothered with appearances, especially with the deadline so close. She then asks Yelia to check the finished parts. Radonic is startled by the disarray of the room as Yelia begins flipping through pages. She hands him one, and as he reads, his heart sinks. It is a scene where he is proposing to Julie, and in it, she declares to her father that the only one who can make her happy is Radonic. She embraces him in the story, which only makes him more uncomfortable as he reads further. Suddenly, Matilda realizes what Radonic is reading and freaks out, exclaiming that it isn't something he should see. Flustered, Radonic shouts at Matilda, demanding that she change the ending immediately. She tries to explain, but in the heat of the moment, she bursts out, accusing him of scorning his lady in real life, calling him a stupid pom-pom. Confused, Radonic asks what that means. Matilda clarifies that she has written Rammer as the loser of the story because she wants to bring him to his knees. But now, she feels the need to make something even worse happen to him, perhaps ruin his family entirely. She laughs maniacally as Yelia calmly reads through the story, offering her opinion that Matilda should change the ending so the protagonist could choose the Marquis instead. Matilda disagrees, claiming that Miss Banach believes everyone would fall in love with her if she reenacted the story, and Rammer genuinely loves her as she is. In her mind, both Rammer and Miss Banach are delusional, with nothing but flowers in their heads, making them the perfect match. Yelia, amused, says she would support their romance and wishes them to be united in the novel as well. As Matilda snaps her fingers, a sudden spark of fire ignites, shocking Radonic. He realizes it is magic, a secret known only to a select few in the kingdom. Matilda can wield it due to her fairy blood. Matilda then tells them she wants Radonic to be happy and has thought of something. Yelia, sensing trouble, expresses her unease. Matilda reassures her, stating that the much-hated villainess would eventually fall in love with Radonic. Yelia, unimpressed, remarks that it isn't very realistic, but Matilda insists that this is where her skill comes into play. More than anything, she wants her lady to be happy. She suddenly proposes another story idea, one involving Radonic, whom she sees as a son, and her lady. Yelia tells Radonic that Matilda won't change the ending after all, as no one can stop her when she is in one of her trances. Radonic asks if Yelia is alright with this, and she shrugs, stating that she doesn't care. She is nothing like the villainous daughter from the books, and above all, she intends to forge her own destiny without anyone's help. Radonic is taken aback, knowing that in the future, they will both be lovers. Meanwhile, Matilda exhausts herself trying to craft the perfect love story between them. Matilda is busy altering the story while Yulia remarks that it is time for them to excuse themselves. As Matilda continues writing, Yulia mentions that it would be better if they didn't become a nuisance. Radonic, meanwhile, stands dazed. She gazes at him, asking if he is listening, noting that his face has turned red. He dismisses her observation, asking if she is merely imagining things and inquiring if something is wrong. Yulia brushes it off, offering a tea from her store that is highly effective against sickness, promising to sell it to him at a discounted price. Radonic, however, remarks that it sounds dubious. Matilda watches them, silently praying that they get along well, reflecting that it's a peculiar feeling. After all, before she met Yulia and became her writer, she was just an ordinary commoner living in a small town 20 years ago. Banshees are fairies believed to foresee their master's death, and it is said that allowing a banshee into one's home and letting her raise a child brings good fortune. The king, familiar with the legend, had the great-grandmother of the princess hire a banshee when the princess's marriage was arranged. That banshee became their maid and soon came to love the princess as if she were her own daughter. After a few years, the princess ascended to become the queen of the kingdom. One day, a man approaches Matilda, kneels before her, and confesses that he fell in love with her at first sight. Stunned, she withdraws her hand and slaps him, telling him not to tease an old woman like herself. Confused, he remains. She sighs, and the queen, noticing her, asks if something is wrong. Matilda reveals that she received a marriage proposal, much to the queen's delight. Excited, the queen insists that Matilda introduce the man to her, but Matilda has no intention of accepting. The queen questions why, suggesting that perhaps the man doesn't suit her taste. Matilda explains that it's not a matter of taste, but that she is already over 40 years old. The queen counters that age differences shouldn't matter and inquires if Matilda has told the man about her background. Matilda admits she did, hoping to quickly discourage his proposal. However, upon hearing her heritage, the man is even more amazed. Learning that Matilda carries the blood of fairies only enhances her mysterious allure in his eyes, and he becomes even more enchanted, expressing his desire for a woman like her to be his wife and stay by his side. Playfully, he even asks if she could hit him one more time. The queen chuckles, noting that he has an amusing personality and commenting that a man with such a puppy-like demeanor would suit Matilda. Matilda muses aloud whether that might be true, admitting she found him endearing. That night, Matilda dreams of cradling 2 boys in her arms. The following day, the man returns and proposes again. Despite her repeated refusals, he persists. Eventually, Matilda, to his astonishment, says yes. They marry. In conversation with the queen, Matilda reveals that she expects her to become pregnant soon. The queen, surprised, asks if Matilda is also expecting, and then requests that she become her son's wet nurse. Matilda agrees, overjoyed. Her husband adores her deeply, as do both Major and the prince, and it feels as though she has gained 2 sons. Major is energetic and full of life, always laughing off any mishaps. He is a bright and cheerful child. The prince, on the other hand, surpasses others in every endeavor, a true prodigy. Despite the vast difference in their social standings, the 2 boys grow as close as real siblings. Though they often cause her trouble with their pranks, Matilda notes that when it comes to the prince, most of his mischief arises from following Major's lead. The people around Major begin to expect that he will eventually become the prince's aide. Major, too, starts to feel the weight of responsibility, believing that he must protect the prince, and he diligently acquires the necessary skills to fulfill the role. However, one day he returns injured, and when asked what happened, he explains that he fell while training to ride horses. She inquires whether he enjoys the training to become an aide, to which he responds, when it comes to training, anything they do is troublesome, right? Matilda later dreams of Major being kicked by senior aides, who think he is acting conceited. Major never expresses a desire for someone to rescue him. Instead, he convinces himself that the only way to protect the prince is to become an exemplary aide, and he believes he will find happiness in that role. One day, Matilda dreams of a goddess coming to Major's aid. The following day, Major approaches her and declares that he no longer wishes to be the prince's aide. Though he still loves the prince, he has found someone else for whom he wants to be genuinely useful. Matilda informs her husband that, because of this, Major will be leaving the palace and that they, too, must part ways. Shocked, her husband listens as she explains that, since Major is still a child, she will accompany him. Although he still has responsibilities as the prime minister, she insists that they must separate for the sake of their son. She also confides that she saw in a dream that she is not only a mother to Major but also a goddess to another. For the sake of their son, she pleads for his understanding as she prepares to leave the royal palace. He sighs, asking if she meant separate in terms of their living arrangements. He then expresses his desire for her to stay by Major's side and care for him. And so, they leave the royal palace to meet the young lady, Yulia Noga, a woman of remarkable intelligence, beauty, and extraordinary business acumen that astonishes anyone who encounters her. Yulia acknowledges that Matilda was once a wet nurse and speculates that if Matilda were to work at her shop, ambitious nobles would come to see her. She ponders over what kind of role to assign Matilda. As she recalls a conversation with Major about bedtime stories, Yulia remembers how instead of lulling her to sleep, those tales had been so captivating that she couldn't rest. Yulia suggests they should write stories that sell well, rather than bedtime tales. To see if it's possible, she hands Matilda a pen, just as Yulia had encouraged her to do before. When Matilda writes a love story that appeals to women, Yulia is elated. The protagonist embodies her ideal, someone who receives love from everyone, strives her hardest, and despite her clumsiness and frequent mistakes, continues to move forward, determined to secure her own happiness. Yet recently, Matilda's story has gone beyond her own expectations as an author. The protagonist no longer chooses the character modeled after Major, but instead hesitates between those based on the prince and Rammer. Frustrated, Matilda is perplexed by this development, wondering what it could signify, even though she is the one writing the story. Everyone who meets the prince recognizes his goodness, so Matilda initially pairs him with the protagonist. However, Radonic requests that she alter the ending. He asks her to make the protagonist the woman who will eventually reject the prince, and with her banshee powers, such a storyline could become a prophecy that might even influence real life. More importantly, the prince, whom she regards as a son, personally asks her to make the change. Matilda also considers that if she writes about a romance between the prince and Yulia, it might come to fruition in reality. She begins to write again. Yulia and Radonic head downstairs, where Yulia admires the girls in new dresses, telling them they look lovely. The girls share what they've chosen to buy, and Yulia again compliments them before handing Radonic the bill. He glances at the receipt, hands her the money, and remarks that the prices are surprisingly low. Yulia replies that the motto of her shop is to offer products that are not only good and affordable but also cute. Radonic thanks her for saving him and gently pats her. Yulia's heart skips a beat, and she becomes flustered. She quickly excuses herself, mentioning an errand, and departs. Once alone, Yulia realizes that she needs to report this unusual reaction to Matilda. Her heart had skipped a beat when Radonic touched her, and she feels compelled to share this development. Matilda, ever the opportunist, tells Yulia that she will use this event in the next chapter of her story. She is confident that this will boost sales in the future. Upon hearing of these events, Major approaches his mother and asks if there is any chance he and Yulia might have a relationship in the story. Borrowing Yulia's words, Matilda asks whether such a scenario would sell well. She wonders if it would be appropriate to write an event focused on Major's happiness. Ultimately, she decides she will need to discuss it further with Lady Yulia. The scene shifts to the high school courtyard. Roland states that Yulia has explained everything to him, and from today onward, he will assist in documenting the infidelity. Yulia, concerned, asks if he will be all right, noting that he is a busy person. He reassures her, saying that it is for her sake and that, no matter what others may say, she is his priority. He adds that she will be left alone with Radonic, and he cannot allow two people of the opposite sex to be left unsupervised. Yulia, slightly amused, replies that the prince is not the kind of man who would hurt her. Roland concedes, agreeing, and mentions that in any case, the prince wouldn't be able to do anything in his current state, as he appears gloomy. Curious, he asks if something has happened. Yulia explains that the other day, the prince had begged Matilda to change the ending of Doki. When he looked at the revised draft, the story had taken a new turn. Initially, the plan had been for the protagonist to choose the character modeled after the prince. However, after hearing the frightened prince's plea, Matilda complied and altered the narrative's direction. Now, the protagonist would end up with the character modeled after Rammer, the Marquis' son, while the prince would become romantically involved with the villainess. In the narrative, the prince addresses the villainess, reminding her that this is the place where he takes his afternoon naps. She says nothing, simply rising to leave. Noticing her tears, he gently asks if she is crying. He remembers that she is the fiancée of the man who had been threatened by his beloved. Convicted harshly before everyone, she had lost her place in the school, and that is why she weeps in this hidden place. He observes that she is here again today, looking like a doll who has been crying. She glances at him, sighs, and tells him not to concern himself with her. The prince is struck by the loveliness of her voice, and in that moment, he takes an interest in her, desiring to hear her speak more. From that day forward, he makes a point of speaking to her regularly. One day, she asks if he too loves the girl she has hurt, confessing that every time he speaks to her, it reminds her of that girl, which causes her pain. She begs him to leave her alone. He, in turn, asks if she has noticed that today, more than any other, is the longest he has heard her voice. She then confesses that she was the one who tormented the girl he loves. The prince listens quietly before admitting that he also longed to be with that girl so intensely that he attempted to manipulate the eldest son of the Marquis. When he sees her with someone else, he even contemplates fighting that person. He continues, explaining that the feeling called love has another side to it, a darker side that is not beautiful. He gently pats her, assuring her that it is not only she who feels this way. He, too, has been consumed by such emotions. As he speaks, tears well up in her eyes. She looks at him with a soft smile before embracing him and crying. Eventually, she pulls back and tells him she is all right now and that he can let her go. He asks if she is truly all right, to which she blushes and reassures him that she is. Blushing in return, the prince listens as she confesses that it is because of him that she was able to change her feelings. From now on, she vows to stop forcing her selfish desires upon others. She smiles brightly, expressing her determination to live with hope for the future. At that moment, the prince realizes that he had misunderstood his own feelings. What he once thought was love for that other girl was, in fact, a childish desire to possess her like one might a toy. Now, however, his feelings for the woman in front of him are different. This, he realizes, is true love. He tells her that he wants to learn more about her. She responds, assuring him that he need not worry about her. Even if she is alone, she will continue living. She adds that if the time comes when she feels the need to cry again, she hopes he will forgive her for returning to this place. He, inspired by her strength, declares that her resilience makes him want to try harder as well. He confesses that when he is with her, he feels as though, no matter what challenges life presents, they will be able to overcome them together. He asks her to share more about herself. She demurs, saying that she doubts talking about herself would be helpful, but if she can be of any assistance to him, she is willing to do whatever he asks. He wishes for her to show that smiling face only to him, but to ensure she doesn't realize this desire, he carefully conceals his expressions. She closes the book with a sigh, thinking as she wonders whether the prince also disapproved of this kind of narrative development. In the story, the prince comes across as heartless, and she mentions this to Matilda. Matilda explains that even if the prince were rejected by the woman he loves, he wouldn't immediately fall in love with someone else. That's why, she explains, the prince had misunderstood his feelings for the girl, and why they needed to create a scenario where he truly falls in love with another woman. Yulia admits that she isn't well versed in these matters, so she'll leave it in Matilda's capable hands, finding the prospect of the story's continuation exciting. Matilda smiles, assuring Yulia that she can trust her. She promises to craft a tale that will make Yulia happy and make her all lovey-dovey with the prince. Yulia simply asks her to make sure the characters find happiness, knowing that both she and Matilda have their own goals. Yulia adds that she sees no problem in selling such a story. Roland, observing the situation, questions whether Radonic is still dissatisfied, pointing out that, even in the story, the prince and Yulia become lovers. Radonic, however, finds it incomprehensible. No matter how many times he reads it, the lady in the story doesn't seem to resemble Yulia at all. She has adorable reactions now and then, but she has a difficult personality, and the only thing she seems to care about is selling her products and making a profit. From every angle, she fits the role of the villain. He thinks to himself that if she truly had those cute reactions, and if she were to make a request, no matter how many enemies he made, he would want to protect her, and inevitably, he would fall in love. Suddenly, Yulia pushes him down, instructing him to lower his head further to avoid being caught. They had come to a secret rendezvous and were now beginning their surveillance. Roland mentions that Julie had attempted to contact him, and Yulia asks if he's all right. He responds that since she recreated the second scene where they meet again, he played along as she had wanted. Yulia grins mischievously, and the prince is visibly shocked. She asks what he's thinking and whether it's a strategy designed to make her believe everything is going according to her plans. He tells her that since she has declared war on Nogura's household, she must be prepared for it. In the end, when nothing goes as she had expected, he wonders how she will react. The prince shivers at the thought. Yulia warns Radonic not to imitate her brother by doing anything dangerous. He quickly shakes his head, insisting that such a thing would be impossible and that he would never take such risks. However, he hesitantly asks if it really would be that dangerous. Yulia agrees, explaining that the manuscript he holds hasn't been published yet, and at this stage, the prince in the story is still in love with the protagonist. Radonic trembles, realizing that even a single mistake could mean irreversible consequences. She nods solemnly. He remarks that this is a woman who has no qualms about tackling him head-on, and there's also the influence of Matilda's prophetic power. He asks how he could possibly avoid contact in a situation like this. Yulia suggests he should have a guard with him, adding that she always found it odd that he never seemed to have any protection. Even when he visited her shop, he was always alone. Roland interjects, explaining that the reason for this is that the prince is at the top of his class in both magic and swordsmanship, so he has no need for guards. Yulia, impressed, asks if he's truly that powerful. He responds that Julie had tackled him without any intent to kill, which is why he hadn't sensed her presence. Yulia grins and teasingly asks if he wants her to protect him. He considers it, thinking that it's fitting. Yulia is a strong and determined woman, fully capable of protecting someone like him as long as he compensates her for it. He asks her how much she would charge,